February 17th, 2017. Rebuilding Community. For this podcast episode, I have decided to interview a great friend of mine, Preston Swafford. For the past year, Jay has hosted the Americana country radio show on WSGI Radio here in Springfield, Tennessee. WSGI is an AM station which, for me, is a piece of Americana in its own right. It has its own unique sound and its own unique feel. Now, many of my listeners probably have never even heard an AM radio station, so this will be a great introduction for you. But for myself, as well as other demographics of my listeners, AM radio was something that we grew up with, and listening to it now brings back a true sense of America's heritage. But it was after my interview with Jay that I realized I was fully immersed in exactly what we have been talking about during the interview, and that is a sense of community. In this case, an artist community as well. And just before the interview started, Terry Price, who is a dear friend of mine and of Jay's as well, arrived at the studio with his camera in hand. Terry is a novelist and a photographer, and when he heard that I would be interviewing Jay, he felt compelled to capture the event photographically. And then as I left the studio after the interview had finished, I had a text waiting for me from another dear friend, Dina Dargo, who is a phenomenal painter and part of this community. She simply texted to say that she had listened to the show. But by doing that, she let each of us know that she supported us as part of this community. And it is this kind of support that creates community and solidifies community, which is the underlying theme of today's podcast. Now for the interview. I'm here at WSGI Radio to interview the renowned Jay Swofford. What an honor it is to be on this side of the microphone interviewing you for once, Jay.
Wow, okay, renowned. I haven't seen that in a bio before, but I'll take it. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
My pleasure. To give listeners a brief background on how this interview came to be, for the past 2 years, I have been working on a photographic documentary called In Search of America. And one aspect of this project is a weekly podcast where I interview people from all walks of life, or sometimes just relay stories that I pick up from the road. And then I realized that right here in my own backyard, as it were, is my friend Jay Swofford, a true legend as an artist and art curator, and now the host of the Americana country radio show here on WSGI. So it only seemed fitting that I interviewed Jay for one of my podcasts. Now, Jay, as I understand it, WSGI is not your first endeavor into radio. In fact, you've also worked in television as well.
I have. I spent 33 years in TV at News Channel 5 in Nashville, WTVF-TV. But I started off in radio, so, man, now I'm back at Americana Country, WSGI, so it's kind of full circle. I started in high school and at a radio station in Nashville, Tennessee, WKDA-AM, back before FM became, a monster that it is today. Just doing a weekend DJ gig, playing the hits of the day, the top 40 stuff, and reading a little news, doing a little bit of everything. Got interested in that, and interestingly, I got into it because I had higher plans than that. I wanted to get some connections in the radio business. I was in a little garage band, a little band, and my brother and I were in a band, and I'd been in bands all my life since the 3rd or 4th grade, playing drums. My brother played bass, and we were in 4 or 5 bands together, and my life scheme was to get into the radio to get some record contacts and then get a big record deal and, of course, become famous rock and roll musicians. But anyway, I got into the radio business to do that, and it kind of stuck. I started liking it, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. In 1982, I got into the TV business. But before that, radio guys and gals, have kind of a gypsy lifestyle. You know, you kind of go where the radio station gig is, you know, whether it's another $1 an hour or, or a better kind of music that you like to play. So I started in Nashville playing pop music, top 40 music. My first full-time gig after I went through engineering school and got a FCC license to become a, quote, engineer, which, you know, the piece of paper now is worthless. But I did that and got my first full-time gig in Chattanooga, Tennessee, playing country music. And a guy by the name of Jimmy Buffett was starting then. That's the way everybody talked his name up. Jimmy Buffett, of course. And it was a lot of fun. And then I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, and through my early radio days, it was Chattanooga, Pikeville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlottesville, Virginia, Stanton, Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Glasgow, Kentucky, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, back to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and then back to Nashville before I got into the TV business. So
kind of like a metal ball inside a pinball machine.
Yeah, pretty much, just bouncing all over the place. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Well, then what sparked your desire to host an Americana country format?
Well, you know, the last big station I was with in Bowling Green, Kentucky, I was most of my career until I got into the TV business, I was the music director and program director. They were all pretty small stations, so you had to wear a lot of hats. And the one in Bowling Green, Kentucky was WLBJ AM and FM. The FM side was kind of doing nothing. Actually had an old turntable, and they would put 3 or 4 platters on it with a changer, and that's all there was. There was no DJs, and they would play, and then the next one would drop down, then the next one would drop down. And sometimes one of the listeners, you know, one of the two of the listeners would call and say, "Hey, your record is stuck over on the FM side." But anyway, we had that signal out there, and we decided, hey, album rock is becoming in its own. This is early 70s. And me and one of the other guys that was on the AM as country DJs loved jazz. And we loved rock and roll music. So we kind of did a fusion kind of thing of album-oriented rock, or AOR, as it was called back in those days. And so our station, Natural 97 FM, as it was known during the Billboard reporting days, was one of the first in the country, first 4 or 5 in the country that formulated the format album-oriented rock. Now, WKDA FM, which became WKDF in the late 70s, went to that format. And there was one in Louisville, WLRS or Walrus, that became that. But there were very, very few at that particular time, and it was a lot of fun. It was the music I enjoyed, album tracks, you know, things you just didn't hear in top 40 radio. So to shorten my answer, which I know I've already gone long on, to shorten that answer basically is the music that college kids were listening to, album, rock, you know, going deep in the album, that kind of thing. And Americana is today's AOR. It's today's format that's got a future out there. It's the music that not only the 20-somethings are listening to, the millennials, if you will, and the old guys are listening to it too, because it encompasses such a wide variety. It encompasses anything from newbies to standards to classic rock to the singer-songwriters like John Prine and Bonnie Raitt and Delbert McClinton, you know, to new people, and I can just go on and on. Nikki Lane, Nina Ritchie, Travis Cooper, Band of Heathens. Those are just some of the new guys that are also in the same genre, and it includes as well classic country, which fits in perfectly with WSGI's normal classic country programming when they sign on the air. So,
well, I know since I started listening to your program, which I do all the time now.
Thank you.
No, truly my pleasure. But you know, what I have always loved about listening to sort of alternative music stations, and now that we have streaming capabilities, you know, there are so many available, is I love hearing music that I don't hear anywhere else. And as I was starting to listen to your program on a regular basis, I started hearing artists that I never even knew existed. Nikki Lane, that you mentioned, is one of them. Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, I think, is another. And, you know, now I own their music in my collection because they're phenomenal. And without your radio station or stations like it, I never would have heard them.
Well, and you know, that's, if you will, a mission of a lot of radio stations is to put out the music that you can't hear anywhere else. And, you know, working in top 40 radio and country music, which has kind of gotten into a pop country sound these days. And it's very, it's very cyclical. All music is cyclical. Back when I was in country music in the 70s, it got into from the classic country style into the syrupy styles, and they were adding strings and lush orchestrations and behind it. And it got a little syrupy for me, for my particular tastes. And so, then came Clint Black and Randy Travis and those kind of guys that kind of back to the basics kind of country music. Well, this is kind of the same thing. Americana music is kind of a back to the basics. It's in fact called roots music. You've got Johnny Cash and Waylon and Willie, and those guys are included in Americana music. John Prine, Emmylou Harris, Rodney Crowell, the guys that sing and write the million-selling albums, the singer-songwriters, they're Americana. And what's really cool is you got R&B classic people, the Staples singers. Mavis Staples still out there cranking them out. Love Mavis Staples. And we mentioned Delbert McClinton. And the new music that you won't hear anywhere else is on Americana, and it's so wide. The genre is so widely accepting of these artists. It's actually outsold country music in the stores, and several times in the last few months. And that's something Barnes and Noble, who I interviewed, one of the VPs there, talking about vinyl music back in vogue again. Albums, the sales are going up and up and up. A lot of the sales are Americana artists, so that's good to hear.
It really is, yeah. It's an exciting time. I often think back to my parents and when they grew up, and something different than music. But I think, when they grew up, they had 2 coffees to choose from, and they had 3 beers to choose from, and none of them were really any good.
Right.
In music, they had, certain genres, and they were great. But now there's so much that we have, at our disposal in music and everything else, and it's just phenomenal. But the other thing that I personally have found, and I think people of my generation and my age will find as well, is that there's a certain emotional quality to listening to AM radio. Obviously the quality technically is not as great as an FM station or the streaming digital that we have now, but there are nuances to it, and much like the album. That the albums were phased out for cassettes because it was better quality than CDs.
Convenience, too.
Exactly, convenience. But now, it's become something that I look forward to relax, even when I'm driving, as I put it on, and it's also I'm finding it's part of creating or part of holding together a community, which is something I want to talk about today. And in fact, this morning when I was out running errands in the car, and one of the things that you have on, I think it's daily, it's sell and swap or swap and shop. Swap and shop. Yep. It's a 30-minute segment that you do every morning. Yeah. But I find that I actually look forward to that now.
You would be surprised, and some days, for me, some days, I've been doing it a year now, the radio show, but they wanted to get rid of that. And it was on at a different time, but we moved it. I said, hey, let's move it back to its original time when you first started it years ago. And let me do it, see how it goes. And if we get no phone calls or no interest at all, we'll just dump it. And I have a lot of fun with that show. There's some characters. There's some regulars that call all the time. There's that list stuff for sale or give away or trade or whatever. And there's some people that look for items to buy. That we put on yard sales and giving away stuff, that kind of thing too. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it kind of takes again full circle for me, because when I went to Chattanooga, we had a swap and shop there, and now I have I'm from the South, so I have a Southern drawl, but in Chattanooga, man, they have a Southern drawl, and there's hill people that live in East Tennessee, and North Georgia, which was the Chattanooga market, and I've got some stories I can't tell here, but they're hilarious sometimes. The calls that come in on Swap and Shop, very entertaining. I get to talk to them on air and off air, and a lot of people, when I see them out in the public, they'll say, I really love Swap and Shop. In fact, today, I think I told you before we started recording, there's a lady that works downtown on the square. She goes and she says she always sits in her car in the parking lot before she goes in. She loves Swap and Shop. She said it's so entertaining. So, I enjoy doing that show.
And again, I think it makes the radio station feel like a part of the community, but it also supports the community.
Sure it does, yeah.
And that's phenomenal. Now, in addition to hosting this radio program, you are also an accomplished artist, a painter, and a very accomplished one at that, I might admit. And that seems to be a departure from your radio and television background. So how did that come about?
Well, I've been... long before I got on the radio, I've always drawn, I've always painted, sketched and colored and this and that. My father was very creative as far back as I can recall. He was always drawing, doodling, that kind of thing. He was a Korean War veteran. He's passed on now, but he was a Korean War veteran. One of the first things I remember ever seeing him draw, or one of the first things that he had drawn that I admired, was a picture of a man and a woman embraced in a kiss. It was so detailed, and it was pen and ink, or ink and pencil, I should say. And it was basically, he did this while he was in Korea during the war, and shipped it home to my mother. Anyway, he was my inspiration. I guess I got some of that talent from him, and I have some very creatives types on both sides of my family. But I've been drawing and painting ever since I was a kid. Took art in school, that kind, all of the usual stuff. Hung out with artists all of my life. Admired quite a few and have gotten to meet quite a few of them growing up. The contemporary artist, I love that. I'm known as an abstract expressionist artist, painter, but I do dabble in photography. Not very good, not like you, but I love it. And I do a lot of folk art too. Do arts and crafts, kind of folk art kind of stuff. I'm the founder and event director for arts and crafts fair every year called Art in the Park here in Springfield, Robertson County, and this will be our 9th year for that. And so, with all of that, I do the folk style art. I depart from my abstract expressionist stuff because, to be real honest, that's what I do for me. That's what I love, the abstract work. But and I do it on a large scale, fairly large scale. And but the art market would rather look at realism rather than abstractions. So every now and then I'll sell one. I've got a commission going on now, but every now and then I'll sell an abstract painting. But most times it's the folk art that sells that I do. So yeah.
Now, you had mentioned that you had started the Art in the Park, but you were also the first person to create a gallery space here in Springfield, Tennessee, to bring an art presence to the community. But also, when you were creating this, and this was something I've long admired about your decision-making when you did this, is that you had the vision to bring in well-established artists as well as artists who are still in the process of being discovered. So there was a well-rounded representation of art being exhibited. And essentially, you were the person who began to put Robertson County on the map as an up-and-coming art community.
Well, we have a wealth of artists in Springfield and Robertson County, like you mentioned. It's just unbelievable how many artists we have in our community amongst our community here. So it was very easy to book in these spaces. When I first got here, my wife and I moved up. We got married, built a house up here in 1988, and I'm painting and this and that and the other. And in Nashville, I'm working at Channel 5 and begging coffee shops to let me hang one or two pieces in there. And from time to time, you get a lot of compliments, but you sell one or two every now and then. But all of a sudden, there was a coffee shop that opened up. It was called Talent's Coffee Shop, or Talent's Coffee Studio, and as you know, I love coffee. And as their walls were bare. And I said, some great artwork would look great in your coffee shop. And so the owner at the time let me hang a few things. And then at the same time, I was contacting Robertson County Chamber of Commerce head Margot Fosnes about the same time and asking her, does Robertson County have an arts council or, art guild or anything like that? And she said, funny that you mentioned that. And it went on from there. We did start an arts council here, and it after a couple of years, it kind of went by the wayside, but was there for about 5 years in name only. But back to Talent's Coffee Studio, we hung art there. We got several local artists and Middle Tennessee artists in there. The Chamber Gallery, I started putting some of my art in there upon the gallery or the Chamber's director's request, and that was when they were in a temporary space. And when they got into their current space, we started the Chamber Gallery, and that was about 2008, I think. And it's still going strong, and we could put about 12 to 15 pieces according to size in there. And that's basically Springfield and Robertson County connected artists. Then I'm connected. I'm the art director there at the Chamber Gallery. And across town, I serve as art director at the Springfield Inn Gallery. Inside the Springfield Inn, we have a real art gallery. We can take about 20 to 25 pieces there. And like you mentioned, we have nationally known artists. We've got one coming up, Kelly Montana. In fact, we'll be hanging her artwork this weekend, installing her show, and holding a reception a couple of weeks later. But we've had you there, David Robert Farmerie, famous photographer. We've had the international artist, Paul Harmon there. Kristen Yamas, who's now a nationally known artist. We've had several people, including some from Middle Tennessee, that are well-known nationwide as well. And we hope to continue at the Springfield Inn Gallery to get not only regional but nationally known artists, too. And every now and then we'll get an internationally known artist like Paul Harmon. And I enjoy... It's kind of selfish in a way that I serve as director because I get to hang out with these guys, and some that are willing I get to have a nice friendship with, and we keep in touch, whether it's just Facebook friends or we talk or go have lunch, coffee, that kind of thing. I still love to go visit Paul Harmon's studio down in Brentwood on a 300-year-old home. And a cabin out in back of his beautiful home is his studio. And just like my garage is filled to the brim with paintings I haven't sold, and some that I've gotten so used to them I don't want to sell them now. His studio is the same with his, and he's just a brilliant artist. And but he's been at Springfield Inn Gallery. He was our second featured artist there, and he doesn't go to Paris anymore, but he did have a studio there for over 20 years, but he stays pretty much close to his Brentwood home now. But yeah, I enjoy being around artists, and art inspires me, so I like to book creative types and unique and very different type of artists too in the Springfield Inn Gallery.
Well, you've done a great job, and it's been a great asset to the community.
Thanks.
And, as I travel through the United States, I'm finding a resurgence in small towns and a resurgence of community especially. And, that's what you are helping to bring about here in Robertson County. And why is that important to you?
Well, again, I think... in a selfish way, I want to be around art, so one way is to do that is to invite people in. And like we said earlier, we do have a wealth currently of artists moving into our community. I mean, Dina Diargo is a perfect example. Moved up here from McMinnville. She heard about this. Trin Blakely down in Nashville, Tennessee, formerly of Robertson County. She's head of Tennessee Arts League now, and she tells all kinds of people about Robertson County and Springfield's growing art community and artists area up here. Michael Manley, Jeppy Hernandez, just a few, and I don't want to. Well, I guess I'm too late now. I started to say I didn't want to start mentioning names, but they are two great artists in their own right, and I love both of their works. Own pieces from both of them, and that's something else too. I am also a collector, so I really enjoy the art, and from time to time when the pocketbook allows, I'll add to my collection. And we have, again, it's art is just not something you hang on your wall. It's not something that goes with the couch. It's something that brings it brings emotion to you. It brings out emotion. It brings out the feelings. That's what an abstract expressionism is. It's all of that on canvas. It's hard to explain to some people, but other artists and artistic types get it. But like Picasso said, somebody says, well, what does that mean? Looking at a particular Picasso painting, he says, what does it mean to you? And I thought that was a profound statement. And that can be said just about at any art. What does it mean to you? Because, I can look at a painting of a cloud with a horse coming out of it, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But some art, you have to sit and actually enjoy it and look at it and sit on the bench in the middle of the gallery and, kind of ponder on it just a little bit. Maybe even talk with somebody else in the gallery about it. What is, how does that make you feel, that kind of thing. So I really enjoy talking about art as we're doing now. And I stop by Springfield TN Gallery from time to time, even after it's been up for a month, and just check it out and go around the room again and, look at it again, because the Springfield TN Gallery shows are solo shows. So it's just one artist featured, which is kind of unusual in itself these days. And they get to not only showcase their art, but it's free. Art galleries usually charging, quite a bit of money. And you get free coffee too, by the way. So I kind of like that. But you really get to enjoy some nice art at any of these galleries. And Springfield is very blessed to have at least those two galleries. And maybe soon we'll get another one or two.
That would be outstanding. We've talked a lot about the art community as part of the community. And and I think that's really important because statistics have shown over the last I want to say 30 or 40 years, but actually it goes back even further, that when areas are either depressed economically or they're trying to build for the first time, as in a lot of places around here that are really still very rural, that if you bring in the artist and create an art community, that it creates a vibrancy within the community. Yeah. So then the community on the periphery starts to come in, and then people from further out start to come in to be around those artists. And that's what's happening here, as you were just talking about. You have other artists moving in, you have other people that are non-artists moving in because the community is growing. But also, getting back to something that I brought up briefly earlier about the Swap and Shop program, is that things like that and your radio station as a whole are really supporting and nurturing in helping to grow the general community at large, not just the art community, but the entire community. And what I have seen, I've been living here for just over 11 years, and I've seen Springfield really start to come alive in all ways. And we have a new restaurant that's trying to open now, and it's bringing people out of the woodwork in a sense. There are people that are coming to this restaurant and people that came to Whitney Lee's when she was open. And I would see them, and I had never seen them before. And I was thinking, my goodness, first of all, I didn't even realize that all these people were here. But they also seemed to be people that were interested in the arts, or interested in socializing, or interested in being part of a community and interacting with other people of the community. And I hadn't experienced it at that level before, but because of these businesses, because of your radio show, because of art that we have here now, all of that's happening, and this community is really growing and, again, becoming vibrant.
I think that's very true. Whether it's an art gallery or a new restaurant that's opening up, the people that are here are going to come out and support it, initially anyway, and to see what it's all about. And then, as we all know, word of mouth, it spreads, and they're going to invite their friends from Nashville and from Kingston Springs, Ashland City, Clarksville, and Gallatin and Hendersonville on up, and of course other spots as well. The art community is word of mouth. a lot. But, Springfield and Robertson County is exploding with ideas. We've got new businesses moving in all the time. We've got manufacturing people moving in, about 800 to 1,000 jobs moving in the next year or so in the Coopertown area. And they're looking not only for schools, parents, they're looking for what is there to do. We've got a great theater. Speaking of the arts, we've got a great theater company, the Robertson County Players. They put on at least 4 productions a year. One coming up here real soon, and so part of the arts is theater as well, and it's my wife, in fact, takes part of that from time to time, so she really enjoys that. And we just have all kinds of great things in Robertson County. We have music too. There's a few clubs around town where you can hear singer-songwriters or country art, up-and-comer country artists, that kind of thing. Talents, when they were still open as a coffee shop, art gallery, that kind of thing. They had music on Fridays and Saturday nights. Saw Charlie Louvin there before he passed away. It was kind of cool seeing a country classic like Charlie Louvin in Springfield. Found out later that he actually lived here for a while, and some of my friends went to school with his kids. But anyway, Willie Nelson used to live in Ridgetop, and his house burned down. He had to leave. But everybody likes, if you get here, a lot of people will just stay here because it's a vibrant town. It's a very warm, accepting town, a welcoming town. I feel like I'm working for the chamber right now, but it's always blue skies in Springfield, that kind of thing. A short drive up from Nashville, that kind of thing. But yeah, we have a vibrant community here, and I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking for the arts, whether it's a theater production or maybe a small gallery to take in that is not going to cost them an arm and a leg to see some great art. So yeah.
And again, it brings the people out and brings them together.
Yeah.
As you know, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and one of the things that we had in the city, and again, Pittsburgh was built on ethnic diversity. So It was, the Poles settled in Polish Hill, and the Serbs settled in South Side, and the Italians in Bloomfield, and on and on. But there was an area in the city itself, just on the outskirts, called the Strip. Or the Strip District, and that's where all the ethnic food restaurants were, and that's where people came on the weekend to get their supplies for the week, their provisions.
Yeah.
But what it did is that was the only time that people left the ethnic neighborhoods that they lived in and came together and then commingled.
Yeah.
So the ethnicities mixed and people got to know one another as people, and it was really a great community.
Yeah.
And it made Pittsburgh a great city. But on a smaller scale, but doing the same thing is with having all of these aspects of community. And again, I go back to your radio station because that has truly become a vital part of this, and all of it is coming together to create this vibrancy, and I think that's just so important.
Well, I've been working at the radio station for just about a year now. I filled in on WDBL, the talk station, the sister station across the hall, several months, and I enjoyed that. But I enjoy playing, Americana music. As I mentioned, I enjoy that type of music, so I really enjoy it. But like you said, whether it's Swap and Shop or a community calendar, which we feature several times a day, talking about the events that are going on in the city and the county, whether it's Springfield or Coopertown or Greenbrier or Ridgetop or Cross Plains, we try to tie that all together. And because we don't stream the radio station, we're a true local radio station. Both of our stations, WSGI AM 1100 and WDBL 1590 AM, are local stations. So what you hear on there is coming out of that studio. Now, there is some satellite programming, but it's emanating from, it's being broadcast from Springfield, Tennessee. So, we put on Dick Veach is the host for Page 2 on our sister station AM 1590 WDBL. His show's called Page 2, and it's local guests about local happenings, whether it's the mayor, the county mayor, school board director, elections, who's running for office, the latest scams from the BBB, that's affecting Springfield, Robertson County, Middle Tennessee, or whatever is in the day's headlines of the daily news. I have a guest Monday, Wednesday, and Friday normally, and I have some regulars. I have Mayor Bradley on. Every month I have our representative, Dr. Sabi Kumar, is on once a month. I have Bill Jones on once a month talking about, some interesting history most people don't know anything about in Springfield and Robertson County. He's also a writer for the local, one of the local papers. And once a month I usually have an open slot, but I usually put the lady from Robertson County Animal Shelter in there, and Shay Bowen. And she's a great talker, great lady, and she has a lot of pets that can be adopted. So we try to make all of that come together. And like we said, it's a local radio station, and Nashville has, this is not an unreal number, and I'm just guessing, but last I heard, Nashville has 35 radio stations that call themselves a Nashville radio station. Now, not all of them are in Nashville, but they all call themselves a Nashville station, but only 3 people own all 35 stations. 3 companies, I should say. 3 companies own that. WDBL and WSGI are owned by somebody that lives in Springfield, Tennessee. So it's a local station, and that's why we cover Springfield and Robertson County, and glad to be part of the community.
And I have to say, it's really kind of fascinating in a sense that for me, that driving to the radio station, and this is my 3rd trip up here, and the radio station literally sits at the outskirts of Springfield. In fact, probably about 50 or 100 yards from the sign that says "Welcome to Springfield." So, but and it takes me back in a nostalgic way, I guess, to there was a movie out years and years and years and years ago called American Graffiti, and the radio station had Wolfman Jack. Sure. It was just great in of
awesome
itself.
Yeah.
But the same thing as the radio station sat out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of like no man's land.
Yeah.
But there's really just something great about that as well. I don't know what it is, but it's it's not in the center of town.
Yeah.
It's you have to drive to
Sure.
it. You have to go, and yet it supports the community in such a great way.
Well, the radio stations, used to in the old days, and same here. The station probably didn't used to be anywhere close to city limits back in the old days, but now it is. I mean, it's right on the city limits. But yeah, I mean, I worked at many stations that were out in the middle of nowhere. Of course, now they're all surrounded by condos, But it's interesting that the radio station is part of the community. Is sitting right there, ironically, right next door to the Springfield Welcome to Springfield sign. City limit sign. It's nice.
Yeah, well, Jay, as always, it has been a great pleasure. Thanks for taking the time, and please just keep doing what you've been doing. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for listening.
The In Search of America podcast, copyright 2017, all rights reserved. Music by Keith Medley at keithmedleymusic.com.